Muskoka, where the main portion of the cruise will take place. In other words, Lake Muskoka is a lot bigger than it looks from this direction. If the lake were only this size, folks, I can assure you we would not have ships like this on it. Now, folks, usually when we begin a cruise like this, we like to say a few words about the ship that we're traveling on, just for those of you who are not familiar with the Seadwin. As you probably know, the Seadwin is a floating museum piece. This is a genuine 19th century Royal Mail passenger and freight steamer of a type that used to be very common on the inland lakes of Canada and the United States. As a matter of fact, Seadwin is one of the oldest engine-powered ships in the entire world still in service. This vessel is now 131 years old. And when you consider that most ships don't last longer than 25 years, it means that this vessel has beaten the odds 5 times over and is still operating. We are very proud of that. The Seadwin was originally built in 1887 in the Clyde shipyards of Scotland and shipped across to Gravenhurst in sections and assembled here. Originally, she was known as the Nipissing, and as the Nipissing, she was a side paddle wheel steamer. Now, the Nipissing sailed these lakes right up until 1914, but then she was laid up with broken down machinery. However, in 1925, this vessel was rebuilt and turned into a twin propeller ship, as she is today, and fitted out with a pair of reciprocating compound steam engines of a type that are rarely found in any kind of ship today. Both of the engines are over 100 years old, and she also has the coal-fired Scotch Marine boiler. This is the only ship in Canada, by the way, that still burns coal. Now, after they took the paddle wheels off her, she just didn't look like the old Nipissing anymore. So the navigation company decided to give her a new name, and they chose to call her Seadwin, which in the Ojibwe language means springtime. The Seadwin rejoined the Muskoka Navigation Company fleet in 1925. In those days, she usually sailed from the port of Bracebridge, going up and down the Muskoka River twice a day. Sometimes she also took the Lake Russell route. However, by the 1950s, the days of the Muskoka Lake steamers were coming to an end. They just couldn't compete any longer with automobiles and motorboats. So in 1958, the Seadwin and the Sangamo sailed for the last time. Nobody ever expected to see them back again. This ship faced a very doubtful future after her retirement, and in 1960, she was offered up for sale for scrap. But she was saved by the town of Gravenhurst. Many Gravenhurst residents were horrified at the idea of losing all their old passenger steamers, which had been on the lakes longer than anybody could remember. So they arranged to buy the Seadwin for the enormous sum of $1, and they turned her into a floating marine museum. The museum kept the ship going until 1969, when a restoration effort could be launched to bring this lovely little ship back into active service once again under steam. Now, folks, it took us 11 years and it cost us over $1 million. But by 1981, we were finally ready to go again, and we've never looked back since. So we invite you to relax and enjoy your cruise aboard this highly historic ship. And remember that traveling on the Seadwin is the kind of experience you cannot find anywhere else. I'm sorry if that was too long. It's hard to compress the ship's history into just a few words. But we feel that people should know what they're traveling on.
How long have you been on?
Yeah, 16 years.
Maybe you are as old as the
Corrections. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we're starting to cruise up Muskoka Bay in a northerly direction. we're passing tiny Grivet Island over there on the left or port side of the ship. Grivet Island was named after Tom Grivet of Gravenhurst, who owned the island at one time. Tom Grivet was one of the founders of the once famous Grivet Boat Building Company. Their factory was located right behind us on the waterfront at Gravenhurst, about where Boston Pizza now is. The Grivet Company made lots of beautiful mahogany motorboats in their time. Some of them still exist. My family had one for many years. I think some of them when I sold our cottage in the Indian home house. A boat like that. Now, folks, speaking of things historic, if you're watching on the right or starboard side of the ship right now, you'll notice there's a rocky shoreline over there without any homes or cottages on it. That shoreline used to be the site of the prisoner of war camp set up at Gravenhurst in 1940 to house captured German officers and servicemen for the duration of World War II. The POW camp had what all POW camps had. You know, searchlights, watchtowers, barbed wire fences. At the Gravenhurst camp, the barbed wire fence extended out into the lake. That was to allow the German prisoners to go swimming in the summertime if they wanted to. Many of them did. The POW camp usually held about 500 prisoners at a time. There were a number of escapes from the camp during the war, but only one prisoner ever got out of the Gravenhurst camp and stayed out for any length of time. The POW camp was closed in 1946 after the war ended, and the prisoners were repatriated and sent back to Germany. And today the property is a public park known as Ungerman Park. It's a favorite place for people to go swimming and picnicking in the summertime. I see some folks over there enjoying the park right now. And you'll notice there's a little beach over there to the right as well. The beach is part of the park. Actually, there were once 2 resort hotels on that property and 1 tuberculosis sanatorium. But we stress the POW camp because we figure it's the most interesting thing. There has been a very good history of the POW camp in Gravenhurst done by a local historian. It's called The Gilded Cage. It's a fascinating read, about all these men on both sides, trying to cope with a very uncomfortable situation during the war. So it's quite interesting. Folks, possibly you may be admiring all those impressive properties you can see on the mainland shore to our right or starboard side. I might remark, those properties are not summer cottages. They are permanent residences on the outskirts of Gravenhurst. There's a street called Gateway Drive that provides access to them. Obviously, most of those places are rebuilds. There are still a few original bungalows left, but the trend is from bungalows to palaces.